Oh my gosh, what is that? What a nightmare. No, it's not a nightmare, it's a fiery horse. Maybe it's called a nightmare. Stop calling it that.
But it is a nightmare, be it yours or mine.
Welcome back to A Compendium of Monsters. It's Nightmare Week. Before we continue, slap that subscribe button and atone for your sins, lest you have nightmares. Nightmares are challenge level 3, and I could see 3 of them making for an enjoyable fight. These large fiends have an armor class of 13, average hit points of 68, a speed of 60 feet, and a flying speed of 90 feet. I am a little surprised that a nightmare doesn't have dark vision, as that's typically a trait all fiends share. Perhaps this comes as a surprise, but nightmares are immune to fire damage. Could not have seen that coming. Nightmares have 2 abilities, confer fire resistance and illumination. It seems like whoever wrote these abilities was at the end of their shift and tired as As expected, confer fire resistance allows the nightmare to grant fire resistance to its rider. Illumination is also exactly what it sounds like. The nightmare sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet. I guess that explains why nightmares don't have dark vision, but I'm not satisfied. I will never be satisfied. Nightmares have a single hoof attack. It deals an average of 13 bludgeoning damage and an additional 7 fire damage. 20 average damage is slightly low for a challenge level 3 creature, but the Nightmare's next action more than makes up for this deficit. Nightmares can take the Ethereal Stride action, which allows them and 3 willing creatures within 5 feet to enter the ethereal plane from the material plane or vice versa. This is the ultimate defensive or sneak attack ability. Losing a fight? Grab your close friends and flee. Need to get a jump on a powerful enemy? Sneak up in the ethereal plane and jump onto the material plane for a surprise round. Nightmares are created through several incredibly specific acts of pure evil. A Pegasus must be captured and restrained before its wings are removed in the slowest, most brutal fashion possible. While this act drives a Pegasus to evil, it is not enough to create a nightmare. Dark, forbidden magic is what finally twists a Pegasus form into a nightmare, both living and literal. Nightmares only serve creatures who are both powerful and evil. Demons, devils, death knights, liches, night hags, hags in general, vampires, you get it. There are 2 ways to bind a nightmare to your service. An infernal tack or a blood sacrifice. Depending on how lazy or ambitious you are, one method may be significantly more work than the other. If one summons a nightmare and offers a worthy sacrifice, your local goody 2-shoes, the nightmare will serve for a time. A nightmare can be forced to remain in an area without a sacrifice, though it is not particularly willing to serve, because hey, if you're gonna drag my ass out of bed, you better have breakfast ready. The other option is to use an infernal tack. This item requires attunement by an evil creature, and the various components must be placed on the nightmare, who, of course, is completely f***ing unwilling and you can't make them. Amusingly, a nightmare may eventually serve the owner of the infernal attack as a willing partner in evil, which sounds a lot like Stockholm Syndrome to me. You will love me eventually. There are a few things about nightmares that are either silly or don't make sense. Starting with their lack of dark vision, I just can't let it go. 20 feet of light is not far, especially if you consider it's only because the nightmare is literally on fire. If the nightmare were to run at high speed, the light should lessen until the nightmare stops. Now, nightmares can dash for 180 feet in a single turn, which is represented by part of a 6-second round. Moving 180 feet that quickly with 10 feet of visibility is going to set you up for a bad time. Going, bonk! Dark vision really needs to be a thing. Second, why can't nightmares hover? They have no wings, so it's not like they need momentum or air currents to maintain altitude. DMs! Nightmares are fun creatures to throw at your players because of their hit and run capabilities. This advice assumes you're familiar with mounted combat rules, so if you're not, go hit the player's handbook page 198. Nightmares have an intelligence score of 10, which is average. Nightmares can assess threats, perform moderately complicated combat tactics, and know to retreat if they receive a heaping helping of hurting. Constructing the encounter depends on what level your player's characters are and how much of a challenge you'd like to throw at them. A difficult fight is when the nightmare appears with a rider and 2 additional allies. This helps even the action economy and possibly divide your party's damage as each character chooses to deal with a different threat. More than 3 attacks in a round is difficult for low-level parties to cope with, but murder your player's characters as you see fit. An important rule of thumb for higher-level parties is to keep the action economy roughly level. Depending on feats or other build factors, martial melee player characters at level 5 have 2 to 3 attacks per round. This number only increases as they level up. Plan ahead. Let's touch on the Ethereal Stride. You can spam this to frustrate your players and drag combat out. I don't recommend doing it, but it's absolutely an option if you have a really annoying mini-boss or big bad who just takes pleasure in being a f***ing dick. If the nightmare is badly injured, it flees to the ethereal plane. It takes its rider and nearby allies if it can, but the nightmare isn't overly fussed to save itself instead of others. When torture and dark magic make you into this, you become your own number 1. Speaking of torture and dark magic, let's talk about transforming a Pegasus into a nightmare. I'm not going to get overly sadistic, but this isn't exactly an all will be well conversation. First, your player's characters need to capture a Pegasus. How exactly they do that is up to them, but their easiest routes are to catch a Pegasus at its nest or enlist the help of an extraplanar entity evil enough to go along with this. Hags are perfect since they can double as the individual who knows the magic to complete the ritual. Of course, the hag won't work for free, and you should make your players deeply regret enlisting her help. Your players will need to spend downtime researching how to create a nightmare. You can use the researching subheading on page 187 of the player's handbook with these things in mind. Your player's character cannot perform the research on the material plane unless they are doing the research in an area where less than hostile ancient creatures frequent. I stand by my hag recommendation and suggest these areas for research: Hades, Diz, Gehenna, or you could try Mechanus. Considering Hades is the plane where night hags are most easily found, I'd have the difficulty check to learn something useful be lowest there, provided the player character has something worthwhile to trade. The difficulty of checks should get harder as you move down this list, ending with Mechanus. The Modrons probably have the knowledge of how to make a nightmare stashed away somewhere, but good luck accessing it without some intense deception f***ery. Drag this on for however long you'd like while we move on to the ritual itself. Obviously, there needs to be a site. A ritual site that is powerful and evil enough to facilitate the turning of a Pegasus into a nightmare is absolutely cursed as f***. Liberally apply negative status effects, madness, or low but constant damage to your player's characters for being within 30 feet of the site. What about the hag? She's unaffected. Duh. Assuming your player's characters have captured a Pegasus, they'll need some creative way to bind it to the altar. Or you could use a holding method inspired by Boethiah's Pillar of Sacrifice. Go play Skyrim if you're not sure what that is. Now all that's left is to decide who's carving the Pegasus's wings off. Don't let the hag do it, because the player who wants the nightmare needs to take responsibility for their new friend. Have the player's character roll against madness twice on each wing to represent the depravity one must risk to perform such a horrible act. Once the wings are off, the hag steps in to perform the incantation, and presto! One nightmare served up hot. Though there are also consequences for performing this ritual. It's unlikely the hag will face any of them, but your player's characters are now guilty or guilty by association. Pegasi are the prized steeds of the Seldarine, who retaliate against any who bring a Pegasus harm. The Seldarine will send their religious followers, powerful adventurers, or even planetars. Yes, multiple. But also keep in mind that your player's characters can now probably shelter with the Dark Seldarine, headed by none other than the murderous Dami-Mami Loth. This can dramatically reshape an existing campaign and, despite the depravity needed to create a nightmare, can provide a lot of fun. Or you can say no to the request for a player's character to make a nightmare and move on. Your table, your rules. Players! I assume you're capable of basic combat with a nightmare and have listened to what I've told your DM to do to you just 3-ish minutes ago. To be perfectly honest, the nightmare isn't usually the problem. The rider or the accompanying allies probably deal more damage than the nightmare. Just look at a Narzagon. Clearly that fire lance is going to hurt. The nightmare? Just an added bonus. Now, if you're looking to create a nightmare, go talk to a hag. They're great at this kind of niche knowledge, and I'd argue they're more useful than most liches at remembering super dark shit. Just know you're going to get more than you bargained for, and it's probably not worth it. And by not worth it, I mean it's probably less trouble to head into the lower planes and capture a nightmare yourself. At least you're less likely to get in trouble for that. Anyways, what do you all think of nightmares? Are you Team Pegasus or Team Nightmare? Let me know in the comments below. A special thank you to my patrons. And thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, share my video on your Twitter, Facebook, or other social media, and make the leap to become one of my patrons on Patreon. I'll see you all next time.